welcome to A Year of Career, 52 practical answers to your questions. I'm Erin Wolfram. I own and operate Career Advantage and Career Advantage Golf, where I help professionals all over the world feel more confident and prepared throughout their job search by helping with things like resumes, cover letters, LinkedIn profiles, mock interviews, and personal websites. In this podcast each week, though, I answer one career development or job search question from the public. And this week's question is, when is it appropriate to omit certain experiences on your resume? And we already touched on this a little bit in a previous episode, so this might be a little bit repetitious, but the question is slightly different, so I thought I would go ahead and address this again. So when thinking about what to include or not to include on your resume, I really think you should consider two things. One is relevance, and the second is time. So thinking about relevance first, what you really want to do is think about all of your experiences, paid and unpaid, educational, professional, etc., that are related to your next career goal. So whatever it is you're going to be applying for, what experiences have you had that are most relevant and related? These don't necessarily have to be directly related, so they don't necessarily have to be in the exact same industry or have the exact same job title or anything like that. They could be opportunities that have transferable skills, and those could still definitely be related or relevant. But if you have some positions that maybe aren't as related or relevant, they just don't really, demonstrate or help you demonstrate your value to that next career goal, whatever that might be, then you could certainly think about omitting them on your resume. If, however, you are concerned that by omitting certain positions that then you're going to have this weird, gap in your resume, what you could consider doing is going ahead and keeping those positions on your resume just to show, what you've been doing over the past, 10, 15 years, whatever it might be. But rather than elaborating on those experiences that aren't as related, you could simply include them with your job title, organization, city and state, and times that you worked there, and just not include those 3 to 5 action verb bulleted statements that you're going to include on those relevant opportunities. So think about that. If something is not relevant, either completely eliminate it entirely from your resume, or you could include it, but just not elaborate on it like you would those that are more relevant. Another thing to think about is time, like I said. So when considering time, think of a few things. One, if you have some experiences that you didn't do for very long, like they were very short term, you might want to consider not including those on your resume. Again, if they are that short term, you're probably going to have an issue with a weird gap in your resume, so not including those isn't going to really raise any red flags or anything like that. So think about that, how long you were there, and if it was a very short amount of time, maybe less than a year, for example, you might not want to include those on your resume. Also, if you have part-time opportunities, maybe you would want to exclude those. Again, depending upon how relevant and related they are to that future career goal. If they're very related, then yes, you definitely want to include part-time positions. But if they're not, those might be ones that you would want to leave off. Also with time, you want to think about how long ago it was that you participated in this position or this activity. So if you have a lot of related experience in the past 10 years, that might be enough. And you don't need to include other positions, beyond those 10 years. In general, I would say you can definitely leave off information if it's more than 20 years old for sure. Likely if it's older than 15 years as well, you could certainly leave off. Again, you could think of it like I mentioned with the relevant positions. If you want to include some of those positions on there that are older and maybe just not elaborate on them, just to show, dedication to the industry, commitment to the field, that sort of thing, you could certainly include those on the resume, but again, just not elaborate on them with the extended bullets that really explain your impact and accomplishments. So those are some of my main tips for kind of figuring out what you might want to include or not include on your resume. Really think about, as you're evaluating opportunities and you're thinking about whether or not you should include this position or not, think most importantly about relevance first, and then second, think about time. And just in general, some basic tips as far as length. If you're 0 to 5 years out of education, your resume is likely going to be 1 page. That's pretty standard. You shouldn't have more than 1 page at that level. Beyond 5 years, you could potentially move into that 2 page level. And most professionals 5 years and beyond are going to have a 2 page resume, especially if you're 10 years and beyond. But you're probably not going to have resume longer than 2 pages unless you're at that executive level or you have an academic curriculum vitae. So think about that. 0 to 5 years out of education, you're going to aim for 1 solid page, and then 5 to 10 years and beyond, you're going to aim for 2 solid pages typically. So again, that can kind of help you figure out, if you do need to omit certain positions, or if you need to at least minimally omit some of those action verb statements on some of your older positions or less relevant positions to make sure that you can get a nice, solid 1 or 2 page resume that best highlights your skills, qualifications, and strengths, and really proves the value that you will bring to that next organization. So I hope that gives you a few helpful tips on evaluating, what to include or what not to include on your resume. If you would like specific help, you can always check out my websites at careeradvantageresumes.com or careeradvantagegolf.com. You can also follow me on social media. I'm at Career Advantage Resumes on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And on Twitter, it's at Advantage Career. So thank you so much for joining me for this quick episode. I don't have a lot of time this week, so I wanted to get something out for you all, but make it short and sweet. So until next week, have a good one. Thanks.